All right. Thank you for coming for a beautiful Sunday morning. And before the big game tomorrow, I'm really honored to be here. When I look through past speakers, I really feel honored. My name is Penn. I work in the Department of Recreation, Park and Tourism. So when I go to parties, people ask me, where do you work? I tell them I work in the Department of Park and Tourism and Recreation. They got very impressed. They either think there's not so many universities have this department, or they think I don't do any work. I go to parks all the time. Actually, both are true. There's not so many universities have this department, and I do go to parks all the time for work as well for fun. My research on big data in tourism and national parks is combined my nerdy side, play with the computers, data, and also my travel bug side. I enjoy traveling all the time. So it gives me opportunity to go to all the beautiful places in the country and in the world. To give you an overview of the talk, I like to talk about what is tourism, because this is such a niche field. I want to talk about tourism research. I want to talk about the importance of tourism and national parks, why it's important to our economy, to the environment, and to the well-being of people. Then I want to talk about the challenges facing tourism and national parks, and the balance between the preservation and also economic development. Then I want to talk about a few research we have been doing. Basically, we're trying to validate big data set for researching visitors to parks and tourists in place. Lastly, I want to talk about the challenges facing this research area today. So we have multiple data sets. They may not tell us a coherent story. How do we make sense of big data? So this is an overview of this talk. So what is tourism? Tourism studies the temporary movement of people from one place to another, or either for business or for pleasure. And also as a result of the economic phenomenon, the psychological phenomenon. So it's involved multiple stakeholders. You have the host region, you have the generating region, and you have the tourists, businesses, governments, communities, environments, all combined. As you can see, it's in nature a very multidisciplinary research area. You can use geography to study tourism. You can use in sociology to study tourism, or economics, or in my case, even computer science to study tourism. And it's a very applied field. So we borrow ideas, skill sets, or methods from other fields, apply them in the tourism field. So that makes it more interesting, very diverse area. The importance of tourism. According to this World Travel and Tourism Council, pre-pandemic, it generates 10% of world GDP and 1 in 10 jobs in the world. Of course, as you know, the pandemic almost killed the tourism industry, but now it's slowly coming back. It's not yet reached the pre-pandemic level yet, but it's almost there. Tourism has been shown to reduce poverty, improves local infrastructure, especially for countries who's less developed, the area less developed. You can attract visitors to bring them in. That generates currency, so you can improve local people's well-being. As if you're a frequent traveler, you know how travel can enrich our lives, can broaden people's worldview, helps intellectual growth. One study we did with children, we found out if a family brings their children to a trip, they actually increase their academic achievement, measured by math scores, standard math scores, or standard reading scores. So bring children to trips actually help with their academic achievement. Many great people say, Mahatma Gandhi, Jeff Kennedy, and Ronald Reagan said, travel is a force for peace, a language of peace, because it facilitates cultural exchange, it reduces animosity among countries and cultures. Well, that last part actually is debatable because some study shows short-term travel actually can reinforce biases and stereotypes instead of reduce them. So that part is debatable. But overall, tourism is important to the economy, to well-being, and to local community. National parks is one big part of tourism. US Travel Association study shows 1 in 3 people travel to the US want to go to see a national park. So generate a lot of economic impact. And national parks are uniquely American idea. It's been called America's best idea. Whenever you go to parks, you cannot help but be proud of this landscape, the wilderness, the pristine nature in this country. So that is our national pride. At the beginning, the environmentalists realized Europeans, they preserve their cathedrals and castles. Americans don't have such long history, but we have wilderness. Those wilderness serve as our cathedrals or the Notre Dames of this country. Because they're lobbying, Yellowstone, the first park in the world actually was established in 1872. And a few decades later, we had the federal agency, National Park Service, to manage all the parks. So today, NPS, they manage more than 400 individual units. So not only national parks, but national battlefields, historical parks, historical sites, memorials, national monuments, including 63, they call it so-called national parks. So it's big public agency, managing all the public lands in the US. Why national park is important? So let me tell you a story. The summer of 2020, I brought my students. We went to Grand Teton National Park to do research. So we interviewed the tourists. They asked about their hiking experience. You may know Grand Teton area has very high price accommodation. So we cannot afford to live in hotels. We have to live in tents. So we found a campsite. We lived there for a few weeks. And it's very primitive tents, campgrounds. You have to drive to go to bathroom. You have to drive to go to a water source. No electricity. The cell phone service is very spotty. It took us a while to get used to it because I never camped for so long before. My students never camped so long before. But after a few days, we fall in love with camping. You know why? One of my students told me she had insomnia. She couldn't sleep at night when we studied at Penn State. When we go camping, no electricity, no lighting at night. She has to go to bed early. Wake up early, do some work. So her insomnia is gone. No more sleeping problems. The same with me. No cell phone to play with. No work to do. So I had to go to tents, sleep early, get up early. Our body is in tune with nature by design. And human beings have been living in the wilderness for 100,000 years. And this modern society gives us so much noise. The images, the sounds, the news, all the videos, short videos, how addictive they can be. So being in nature actually bring our back to nature, bring our body in tune with nature. So that's why we're thinking that nature heals the malaise of modern society by bring back the balance. And national parks help us preserve that precious nature, wilderness. So that's how national parks are important. Besides health benefits, national parks have the environmental benefits. We have the valuable cultural resources, natural resources. If we don't preserve them, the urbanization process are going to encroach those space, and those resources won't be there no more. Also, the educational benefits. So visiting parks inspires curiosity and lifelong learning. You bring young people to parks, they will generate interest in environmental studies, science, and that will, in turn, promote preservation, environmental study in the future. All the great benefit about visiting national parks. So that's why NPS, the federal agency, their mandates have two purposes. One is preserve those precious resources for this generation and the future generations use, and also create those opportunities for outdoor recreation. We can enjoy those nature, wilderness, the benefits that we talk about. As you realize, I highlighted two keywords, preserves and outdoor recreation. Sometimes they work together. By bringing young people into outdoor recreation, we appreciate nature, and we become advocate for preservation. But on the other hand, if more people come to national parks, that generates pressure to those resources. They're going to counteract our preservation effort. In that summer 2020, that was in Rocky Mountain National Park. You can see the wild animals have to share space with a lot of cars and vehicles. Of course, the motorists are got excited, take pictures, take videos, but somehow it is dilute those wilderness character. And imagine more and more people coming to national parks, that maybe puts too much pressure on the resources there. So that's a perpetual dilemma we're facing in national parks, the perpetual dilemma between preservation and visitor use. We want them to be used so we can generate benefit. More people using them, that would be put too much pressure on the preservation. The same thing happened in tourism. Pre-pandemic, that's the visitor crowd in Venice. All you see are people, less so about historic sites. So there's many backlash from tourists. This is not Venice land. A lot of negative sentiment generated. That's the so-called over-tourism. Not only happening in Venice, but Amsterdam, many cities in the US. And of course, during the pandemic, we moved from over-tourism to no tourism in no time. Empty boats or attractions in Venice. That speaks about the fragility of the tourism industry. It can go from over-tourism to no tourism in a very short period of time. So the balance between tourism economy and local community, that's a key theme in the challenge facing tourism. So what's the problem? The problem is we have to take a broader stakeholder overview of our tourism system. The tourism not only involves tourists, businesses, but also government, local residents, NGOs. And more importantly, there's missing stakeholders here, which is the future generations and the earth. And sometimes they don't have a voice, they cannot sit at the table for negotiation. So we have to bring them to the table. And in the past, we focused too much on these stakeholders, the tourists, the businesses, the so-called economic interest. But we ignore somehow the social responsibilities and environmental awareness. So the so-called 3 pillars of sustainability had to be measured, focused on, and taken care of. So that's bringing me to this view. The challenges today facing national parks and tourism is a balance between the demand of various stakeholders, not only stakeholders, tourists, tourism business, but also local residents, community, and the environment. How do we keep the balance? To keep the balance, we have to be able to measure them. So that's why I think big data offer us a way to measure those demands, those balance, in real time with high frequency data and a population-based measurement instead of surveys. So surveys has been our traditional de facto research methodology, and it's slow, it's cost prohibitive, and big data can give us more information. You may ask, what do you mean by big data? So here's an example. Let's say you try to go to a national park. What do? You go online, you go to Google, you type in such query. It should say Rocky Mountain National Park trails. And then you will leave your trace, those queries on Google's server. When you reach the website of the park, you will leave your IP address, your cookies on their server. When you pick up the phone, make a reservation, and somehow the phone call, the location of your phone left somewhere, either in the cell phone company or third party, And then when you take pictures in the park, your picture most likely carries your GPS location. Those are the traces too. Of course, after your trip, you come back, you post pictures online on Twitter or Instagram, and those become part of the data on social media platforms. So all this is complex network of traces, which we can tap into study tourists. So we call them the visitors' digital footprints. And more importantly, those traces sometimes happen before your actual travel, right? Because sometimes you plan trips from home. Then you leave your traces on Google server or website server. If there's a lag time between your trip planning, actual trip, we can use that to do some forecasting, to anticipate the flux of visitors. And of course, you will make reservations during your trip too, make transactions. So those data become part of the traces. You can tap into study the in-location behavior. After trip, you post some images, pictures, and we can tap into those to study your experience, your sentiment. So by this model, we combine your behavior with the traces. The traces can indicate your future intention. So then we can study your either your location, your spatial distribution, your experience in a place or the destination. For example, so these are the Google search queries for the keywords. They call these hotels. You may notice this is in the past 8 years. You may notice a very distinct seasonal patterns. The peak happens in August or September. The welcoming week, start of the football season. The lowest number happens in December, January. Nobody coming to town because it's so cold. And you noticed in 2020, the search queries dropped significantly. So query the indication of your intention to travel. So as website traffic data. So this is all the traffic to my personal homepage. I have a homepage in Penn State. Sometimes I check who's visiting my website. Most traffic came from State College. So that's my colleagues, my students, sometimes myself checking my website. And we have a lot of traffic from Paris. No, I've never been to Paris. But I know the university will specialize in tourism in Paris. That's my colleagues in Paris. And actually, I'm going there in March. So actually, I can get to know them even before they come to meet them in person. I can know which web page they're checking on my website, even with pictures they're looking at, and which papers they're reading on my website. So I get to know my audience even before actually meeting them. That's important because that's significant for any businesses. You get to know your customers before you even convert them to your customers. So those are the two sets of big data. We definitely can use them to study tourism. So next few examples, I will talk about Charleston, South Carolina. So why Charleston? Just because my previous job is in Charleston. I work as a professor in College Charleston. I did a lot of research with local tourism bureau there. Try to help them study the tourism market. If you have been to Charleston, you know it's a coastal city in Charleston. It's in South Carolina. It's very historic, a lot of beaches, great food. Also, it's an upcoming city. It has been growing tremendously in the past 10, 20 years. So the first thing we did is we tried to forecast hotel demand in Charleston with search engine query data. The one I showed you before, that's from Google Trends, a platform provided by Google. And we decided we found out people use those 5 queries to search for Charleston. Charleston travel, Charleston SC, Charleston hotels, Charleston restaurants, Charleston tourism. 5 most popular queries when people plan a trip. So we plot those queries on the top of the graph. I'm sorry, on top of the graph, the black line indicates hotel demand, meaning that the number of hotel rooms sold every week in Charleston, South Carolina. And the bottom lines indicate the volume of searches for those 5 queries. You can already see that the peaks and valleys are correlated somehow. And if you look carefully, actually the queries happened before the actual accommodation, meaning that people plan trips, search for those information before their arrival. So use that, we could forecast future hotel demand. So why that's important? Because hotel need to know that. They need to know how many people come into my town, so I can price my hotel properly, or I can get ready for the flux of large amount of tourists. So with actual data from the search queries, we could increase the forecasting accuracy of hotel demand by 5% compared to the model without those external variables. And we found out near future forecasting is most accurate of 4 to 8 weeks ahead, meaning that people go to Charleston usually plan trips 4 to 8 weeks ahead of time. Now that might be changed for different places, but for Charleston it's 4 to 8 weeks of ahead of time. What about Tourism Bureau's website? Because when you search on Google, you want to reach somewhere, a website, a web page, to look for information. For tourism, most likely you will reach a Tourism Bureau's website because they're supposed to be unbiased. So tourism websites traffic had to be an indicator of the future travel intention. So we use the Charleston Bureau website traffic to forecast hotel occupancy again. So the 2 graphs on the top are the weekly website traffic measured by visits or visitors. The bottom 2 graphs are hotel demand measured by either room nights sold or hotel occupancy, that's between 0% to 100%. As you can see, the seasonality pretty much match with each other nicely. And also there's a lag time because people always look for tourism information on the Bureau website before their actual stay in hotels. So this is even better. So our model can be improved by 14%, 15%, including those website traffic data. So we validated the value of Tourism Bureau's website traffic in predicting future hotel demand. So we argue that Tourism Bureau should post this information online. I mean, why not? Why not make them public? So all the hotel will see the trends, what's coming up in the next few weeks. Now that's for 4 weeks ahead of forecasting. But we also found out we need specific models for specific places. Because if you plan trip to Charleston, South Carolina, you may plan 4 weeks ahead. But if you plan trip to Harrisburg, that might be only a few hours ahead. So it's specific to a place. And also we anticipate the planning horizon going to shorten in the future, means the pre-planning time. Because nowadays we have more smartphones and we carry them all the time, and we may have a shorter planning horizon. Good, so search query is useful, website traffic is useful. We also can have website traffic to find a potential market for a place. In this case, Charleston. One of the major jobs for the Bureau is to find airlines to fly to the city. And Charleston, South Carolina is an expensive place to fly to if you've been there before. Their job is to find a low budget airline to open a new market so they can bring more visitors to Charleston. So the Bureau director talked to us. So where should we fly to the next? Which market has a lot of potentials? So we took on the job, we collected lots of data, the zip code from hotel guests, the mobile phone data, we figured out where they're from, and we built a gravity model from it. You may ask, what's a gravity model? Just like gravity model in Newton's sense, right? Gravitational economics means the flow of people from one place to another is determined by how big the place is and how far away it is. As you can imagine, the bigger the city, the more people will come to town. The further the distance, the less likely to come to town. So this is a gravity model. But sometimes there may be barriers for coming to visit. For example, there may be less marketing to that metropolitan area, means less people will come. There may be no direct flight. In that case, maybe too much trouble to fly, switch fuel flight to go to the place. So those barriers make the model invalid. But if we figure out a normal model, we can look at the outliers. And we can figure out which city has the potential. So build this gravity model with 300 cities, Charleston, and we fit the value on this line, and we look for the city which have underperformed based on the model. For example, Portland, Maine, supposed to have 200,000 people according to this model, but in reality, they don't have 100,000. So a lot of potential there. And also, we look at the website traffic. We realize a lot of the traffic came from Portland, Maine. That means a lot of interest. People haven't made a trip. So combine these two models, we figure out that Portland, Maine is a perfect place for the discover the potential market for Charleston. So that's what we found. We found 5 major cities we can fly to create those potential markets: Portland, Maine, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Jacksonville, Allentown, Pennsylvania, and Kansas City. So we wrote report, we give report to the Tourism Bureau. They give this report to the airline company, but they did not use our results. They rather to steal market share from other major airlines rather than open new market. So this result only useful for Tourism Bureau for the benefit of local community, not in terms of beneficial to the airline company. So I guess somehow we're asking different question here. Mobile phone data. Mobile phone data is super useful too for tourism. There are a few companies right now to provide you LBS data, so-called location-based service data. You can buy data from a near, street light data, AirStage, SafeGraph. They claim they have 1/3 of US cell phone traffic. So we have 40 people here. 1/3 of us, we have your data stored in those servers on those companies. You may ask how? Also, when you download an app, for example, the Weather Channel app, they ask you, do you allow us to use your location? Do you allow us to share, to check activity across many websites and apps? I don't know about you. I don't read those fine print. I just say allow, allow, allow. So when you click allow, you give them permission to share your location data to third party. Those data will go to those companies. The company will do some anonymizing and cleaning, wrangling. They provided market intelligence to other company businesses. So that's how the data, mobile data come from. And we want to see if they are useful for tourism. So instead of surveys, we purchased data from AirStage, one of the companies. We compare with our survey results. Because we do a lot of surveys for Charleston, South Carolina, when you compare them, you can see the visitor market is pretty similar. The mobile phone data versus survey results. You can see the shades of purple is almost identical. So they're very useful. But you may realize for mobile phone data, there's more purple around South Carolina in the southeast, but not so much in survey data. In that case, we actually think the mobile data is more accurate because they capture those people who come to Charleston to visit family and friends who may not go to the major attractions. Because when we do a survey, we had to hand out surveys in the major attractions. For some tourists, we call VFR, visiting family and friends, They may not go to those attractions. Mobile data is more accurate in capture those tourist shows. We also use RBS data, the mobile phone data for national parks, say Yellowstone. So they capture all the major attractions inside Yellowstone. And we also compared the most popular attraction, Yellowstone Arts and Photography Center. That's a place with most traffic, with official gate counts in Yellowstone. So this is interesting. When you look at the graph on the right, so the yellow line indicates the mobile phone traffic. The blue line indicates the official gate counts. They correlate somehow until the August of 2020. So two lines diverged. So why is that? So actually, we made a phone call to Yellowstone National Park. We have colleagues there. They told us actually this Yellowstone Art and Photography Center implemented a COVID policy at that time. You can only have so many people in the store. So that explains the divergence curves in August and September of 2020. So mobile phone data is useful. It reflects its origins. Also tells us very detailed information about one place, which is very hard to get for other type of data. So that's our conclusion. Mobile phone data could be very useful and highly correlated with official stats. And they also provide more information, more detailed information on spatial temporal distributions. So they're useful. So that's why we took the mobile phone data to study national trends. We want to see how COVID-19 impacted our national park visitation in the whole country. So we plotted over the 63 national parks, their traffic according to the mobile phone data. So this is from 2018 to April 2021. And those blue lines in the middle are indicating the starting of the pandemic. The most popular national park, according to our stats here, is Indiana Dunes, Gateway Arch, and Cuyahoga Valley, because it's close to major metropolitan area. As you can see, during pandemic, the visitation dropped sharply, but it's slowly getting back. So in 2021, it's getting back, but not there yet. Not yet reached a pre-pandemic level for national park visitation. Because mobile phone data give us the details information about one device, we can look carefully on each device travel. Because we know the home location of the device, we know where the device been to across the whole trip. We studied the millions of national park visitation according to the mobile devices. We found a very interesting phenomenon. So here, the x-axis is the distance from home to the park. The y-axis is the visitation in log terms. The two lines here, the pink line indicates the pre-COVID-19 era. The blue line indicates during and after COVID-19 era. You can see the two lines actually overlap at one point. This point is 260 miles. So within 260 miles, the blue line is higher than the pink line, meaning that people actually increase their visitation to national parks if they're within 260 miles away. After that, the longer distance, the post-COVID era have decreased visitation. So why 260 miles? We were asking. So that's almost 4 to 5 hours drive. So this tells us post-COVID, people are more cautious. They don't want to stay overnight because after 4 or 5 hours drive, that's overnight trip instead of a day trip. I think that's the worry about the pandemic. So Post-pandemic, people are less likely to go further places, rather visit national parks nearby. That also could be the difference between in-state travel versus out-of-state travel. Because as you may remember, back then, different states have different travel policy. It's really confusing. People may just prefer travel in states. So how could COVID-19 impact the visitation to parks? We travel less distance, but more to nearby parks instead of further away parks. We also studied the ethnicity and also how COVID-19 impact community with different ethnicity. You may know national park is mostly white visitors, 80–90% are white. And that has been a big challenge for NPS, how to promote park visits to all ethnicities. So on the graph to the right, you can see the x-axis is percentage of non-white population in the community. The y-axis is the visitation numbers in log terms. Again, the pink line indicates pre-COVID visitation. The blue line indicates post-COVID visitation. So as you can see, post-COVID have a decreased visitation. And as the percentage of non-white population increases, the gap increases. Meaning that the minority group have even less visitation to national parks compared to pre-pandemic. COVID-19 impact visiting national parks even worse for minority groups. And we did a further study. We found out actually for African Americans and Asian Americans, even visits to nearby parks decrease a lot, not only to further away parks. We explain with economic terms. We know COVID-19 impact African Americans more severely. For Asian Americans, it's more due to cultural differences, we think, because study shows Asian Americans are more risk averse than other ethnicities. So this is our overall results. The increase in park visitation within 260 miles, but decrease for longer distance visit. And non-white communities are more negatively impacted by the pandemic. And economic difficulty and cultural differences contribute to the certain visiting behavior. We talk about search queries, we talk about website traffic, we talk about mobile phone data. What about social media? Sometimes the tweet carries your geotags. So when you tweet from inside Yellowstone, we know you are visitors to Yellowstone. Then we can go back to capture your profile information. We can feed your picture to this AI program, and we can know a lot of information about you. Google Vision API actually can tell us age, gender, ethnicity, and even the location. My profile picture carries my location. So you can know a lot about this Twitter user by mining their profile information. We know who's been to Yellowstone. We know their profile information. Now we can do some calculation. We can find out who they are. Are they matched with the survey results? Are those visitors on Twitter matches with our survey results? So turns out, so these are the Twitter users' profile. The visitation is pretty much matched with major road network in Yellowstone and major attractions. Female male ratio is almost the same. Survey results versus Twitter accounts. We compare the official stats in Yellowstone with the amount of tweets. On the monthly basis, they match up pretty nicely, except in the winter, the more tweets than actual surveys. More proportion of tweets in the winter months than the survey results. Now that's good because we can study more about visitors' experience in the winter. Age composition shows that Twitter user actually tend to be younger. Almost nobody above age 61 on Twitter. So that's tell us the platform bias of Twitter. It's only give us the young people's interest and experience. And in terms of ethnicity, Black people and Asian people actually represent a higher proportion in Twitter accounts. Actually, there are few people who are Black and Asian in the survey. We think that's a good thing because we can learn about minority experience through mining their tweets, study them on Twitter. So what do we learn here? Social media contains the detailed spatial information, and some amounts are represented in social media data. The demographics are correlated, but the certain demographics are overrepresented. But sometimes that's a good thing because we can study more about minority experience on social media platforms. So that's utility of social media for study visitors. The last study, I want to talk about simulations. Why simulation is also important tool for study parks. You may read this news before in the summer, right? There's a big flooding in Yellowstone. It destroyed a road, caused $1 billion damage. A few structures was damaged, and it takes a lot of money to rebuild the road. I think now it's opened the road again. So climate change creates a lot of extreme weather condition. That caused a lot of pressure to national parks, either flooding or fires. Rocky Mountain had the biggest fire in history in 2020 and burned 30,000 acres, 9% of the park, lost many housing structures. Nobody died. We didn't lost lives, but they have to evacuate the whole park and also the town nearby. So evacuation is a big topic nowadays for national parks, just because those disasters are going to become more and more frequent in the future. So how do we prepare for evacuation? It's hard because you cannot do a drill, right? It's hard to do a drill. You cannot say close the park for a few days. Let's do an evacuation drill. That's almost impossible. So the way we do that is through simulation. So we study the park. We find out how many visitors in the park, how many vehicles the park accommodate, what's the peak volume. Then we build a simulation model in the software. We assign vehicles with individual behavior, their speed, how they follow different cars. And we build the traffic lights, the turn signals. Then we can observe the model. We can observe how long it takes to evacuate all the people, and what caused the delays, and what's the density of the vehicles. So for build the model, we have to go to the park to make observations, and also observe the elevation of the road, the turn signals, how long the turn signal is. So we throw that in the model. We can run the model multiple times, maybe 100 times to see where the congestions are. We can zoom in and zoom out to observe the most dense area. Here you can see there apparently some congestions in this road intersection. Then we can test the what if questions. What if there's a car crash? As you know, during emergency, a lot of things can happen. What if a car crashed? The vehicle had to slow down to 5 miles per hour. The 2-lane traffic becomes 1-lane traffic. So we can build that in the model and observe the behavior. How long going to delay the evacuation? And what if we have a park ranger to station at the intersection, so they can move the cars more faster? So we can test those what if questions in the simulation once we have the base model. So we found that there's minor congestions happening at two road intersections. And we can station the rangers there to remove the stop sign as expedite the early hour evacuation. But the major delay in evacuation in Rocky Mountain is not about congestion. It is the way to inform the hikers. If you went to Rocky Mountain National Park, you know there's a trail network, a lot of trail network, and it's very spotty cell coverage. Only way to inform the hiker is to let park rangers walk up the trail, tell everybody. And that's 4 or 5 miles, at most 4 or 5 miles per hour walking speed. So this is our major conclusion. The distribution of hikers along the trails determines the total evacuation time. The key to improve evacuation actually is informing the hiker faster. We could do that by increasing cell phone coverage. Now that's always controversial in national parks. And we can follow a social engineering approach, means we can let hikers tell each other. So those are the major conclusions from the simulation exercise. Again, very useful tools to prepare for an emergency scenario. And because those things are going to happen more and more frequently in the future. So those are the few studies we conducted. And what do we see the pitfalls of big data research for tourism and parks? Sometimes there are inconsistency in big data sources. So the social media tell us a story. The mobile phone data tell us a different story. How do we reconcile different stories? So we know we can get close to the true behavior. And also, there's the data models always ephemeral. So what do I mean by that? We change our behaviors. You know, today Google may change their interface. Right now we have this chat API, GPT, right? The AI tool. People may use less search engines. That's going to change the search engine query volume data. Those technical changes, behavior changes, can change our models. Also, changes in legal issues. You know, as you know, the European Union adopted very more strict rules on cookies. That changed a lot of big data sources from this weblog data. So a very simple reliance on big data is very flawed. It could be dangerous because many times we don't know what's behind the big data. Google Trends give us scaled data, but they never tell us how they come up with the data. The mobile phone data company give us data, we can buy from them, but how they clean the data, how they did the data wrangling is opaque. Sometimes even black is a black box. So it's hard to get very detailed information or true information from those data. In the future, in this area of research, I think one major direction is we have to move from correlation to precision. Just say 80% correlation is not enough. We have to reach higher, so the park manager can really use those data from big data. And we have to reach consistency with combination of multiple sources. That might be a data fusion problem. How do you combine text data with mobile phone data, with video data? So that problem is not yet solved. And there need a business model for sharing of tourism big data, because big data now is sitting in different companies, different places. There should be a trading platform which we can combine them together. Let's get back to the challenges today. The challenges is this balance. Remember, we talked about the balance between use, preservation, and the needs of different stakeholders. I do believe to solve that problem, big data offer positive solutions. We can measure them, not only about visitor volume, the job created, but also the air quality, water quality, the pollution, the noise, even the sentiment from the local community, the well-being of the local people. Now, if we can measure them in real time, we can probably build this balanced system. We can maybe create an early warning system when there's too many people coming, with there maybe is the place being overwhelmed. So I do believe the big data can offer part of that solution, but we need a bigger framework for that purpose. So today we talk about these few issues. So tourism and national parks are important to our economy, well-being of residents and visitors, and the preservation of the environment. The balance here is the key. How do you balance preservation with economic development? So that's a perpetual dilemma we're facing for tourism and national parks. The big data, if we use properly, can offer a part of solution. So we can monitor real-time data, high-frequency data, monitor forecasting real time. A talk is never completed with thanks to our sponsors. Studies sponsored by National Park Service, a few institutes from Penn State, ICDS, SSRI, Center for Social Data Analytics, locally supported by Charleston Area Convention Visitor Bureau, and South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. I think we're ready for questions. Thank you for listening.